Okay, so imagine this, I'm Marcos, just a regular dude, right? I was on my way home from work, stuck in the usual Tuesday traffic jam on I-95, just outside of Philadelphia. Then, it started. Sirens, but not the normal ones. These were frantic, overlapping, like a goddamn panic attack in audio form. People in the cars next to me were losing it. One guy, in a minivan, just started screaming, pointing. I followed his gaze, and that's when I saw it. A woman, no, what was a woman, was gnawing. Just violently tearing into the arm of a police officer who was trying to pull her out of his car. It wasn't like a movie, this was raw, messy. The officer was still trying to fight, but she was just, relentless, this guttural sound coming from her. Then another officer, trying to help, got tackled. And the screams, oh God, the screams. It was like the whole world decided to go insane all at once. Cars were crashing, people were running, and the ones who were running were being chased. My first thought was pure, unadulterated terror. Like, my brain just shut down for a second. Then, the survival instinct kicks in. I remember fumbling with my seatbelt, my hands shaking so bad I could barely get it undone. The car behind me, a beat-up pickup, slammed into mine. The noise was deafening, and then through the shattered rear window, I saw the driver of that truck. He was already changed. His eyes were milky, his mouth hanging open, and he was shambling towards my car, arms outstretched. I scrambled out, leaving my own car behind. It felt like an eternity, but it was probably only seconds. The smell hit me then, coppery, metallic, and something else, something rotten. It was the smell of death, but fresh death. People were running, tripping, and as they fell, they were swarmed. It was like watching a horrible, slow-motion feeding frenzy. I saw a mother, trying to shield her kid, get pulled down. The kid just froze, staring, before one of them turned its vacant gaze on him. My mind was a mess. How could this be happening? 1 minute it's traffic, the next it's this. I just kept moving, pushing through the chaos, the screaming. Every shadow, every sound made me jump. I ducked into an alleyway, the stench of garbage mixing with that awful, fresh death smell. I huddled there, trying to breathe, trying to process. That's when the hunger started, a gnawing in my own gut, a stark reminder that I was still alive, and that being alive in this new world was going to be a whole new kind of hell. You think you know what fear is? You don't. Not until you see what I saw, and then you have to decide if you keep running, or if you're going to fight. What would you do in that moment, trapped in your car with that thing coming at you? Seriously, tell me in the comments. This is probably the last time I'll be able to record this. If anyone ever finds this, please, subscribe to the channel. Give it a like, you know. It's a long shot, but, it's all I've got. Just, if you see this, know that I tried. And maybe, just maybe, there's someone else out there who can learn from this. I'm going to try and find more supplies. Wish me luck. The engine sputtered again, a weak cough in the suffocating silence. I slammed my fist against the dashboard, the vibration doing nothing to soothe the icy dread that had settled deep in my gut. The thing was still out there. I could feel it, a prickling sensation on the back of my neck, a primal awareness of its proximity. My eyes darted to the rearview mirror, expecting to see those vacant, hungry eyes, but there was only the inky blackness of the road behind me, punctuated by the fading glow of my taillights. I had to move. Staying put was a death sentence. But where? Every shadow seemed to writhe, every rustle of leaves felt like an approaching footstep. The fuel gauge was hovering precariously close to empty. I needed gas, and I needed it now. The thought of walking into the unknown, into that oppressive darkness, made my stomach churn. But the alternative, waiting for it to find me in this metal coffin, was worse. I turned the ignition again, praying for a miracle. The engine groaned, hesitated, and then, blessedly, caught. It was a rough, sputtering sound, but it was alive. I didn't dare look in the rearview mirror. Instead, I focused on the faint, almost non-existent light ahead. The road was a ribbon of uncertainty, leading into a void that seemed to swallow everything. As I crept forward, the headlights cut a meager swathe through the gloom. The trees on either side pressed in, their skeletal branches reaching out like grasping claws. The silence outside was broken only by the labored breathing of the car and my own ragged gasps. Then, I saw it. A faint flicker of light in the distance. A building? Hope, a fragile, desperate thing, flickered within me. Maybe it was a gas station, or a house, someone who could help. Or maybe, it was just another trap. The closer I got, the more I could make out. It was a gas station, or what was left of one. The sign was broken, hanging precariously from one bolt, its once bright letters now faded and rusted. The pumps were skeletal, their hoses ripped and dangling like dead vines. But there was a light on inside, a weak, flickering bulb that cast long, distorted shadows. I pulled up, the car groaning as if in protest. The place was deserted, the air thick with the smell of decay and something else, something metallic and coppery. My heart hammered against my ribs. Should I go inside? It felt wrong, deeply wrong. But the thought of that thing returning, of being stranded here with no hope of escape, pushed me forward. I killed the engine, plunging myself into an even deeper darkness, and reached for the door handle. The metal was cold, slick with an unseen film. The silence that followed the engine's death was oppressive. Every creak of the old building, every whisper of whine through the broken panes, seemed amplified. I pushed the door open, a low groan protesting the movement, and stepped into what felt like a mausoleum. Dust motes danced in the faint shafts of light piercing the gloom, illuminating a scene of utter desolation. Furniture lay overturned, covered in a thick shroud of grime. Cobwebs, thick as cotton, draped themselves over everything like forgotten funeral shrouds. The metallic tang in the air was stronger here, laced with the unmistakable scent of dried blood. My breath hitched. This wasn't just abandoned, it was violated. My flashlight beam cut through the darkness, revealing a long hallway. The floorboards groaned under my weight with each cautious step. To my left, a doorway led into what looked like a parlor, its once elegant furniture now tattered and ripped. A grand piano stood in the corner, its keys yellowed and silent, a mournful sentinel. I resisted the urge to touch it. The air felt heavy, as if the very walls remembered what had transpired within them. I moved deeper into the hallway, my eyes scanning every shadow, every corner. At the end of the hall, a larger door stood ajar. This, I sensed, was the heart of whatever darkness resided here. I took a deep breath, the stale air doing little to calm my racing pulse. The metallic smell was almost overwhelming now. As I neared the door, a faint glint caught my eye, a discarded piece of metal, reflecting the weak beam of my light. It was a fragment of something sharp, stained with what looked like dried blood. My stomach churned. I pushed the door open further, revealing a vast, circular room. In the center of the room, a raised platform dominated the space. It was stained dark, the coppery scent emanating strongly from it. Around the platform, scattered on the floor, were more fragments, tools of some kind, glinting dully. My flashlight swept across the room, catching on more disturbing evidence. On the walls, etched deeply into the stone, were symbols, crude and unsettling, that seemed to pulse with a malevolent energy. It was clear this place had been a site of something terrible, a ritual or a sacrifice. A sudden gust of wind, far stronger than any outside, whipped through the room, extinguishing my flashlight. I was plunged into absolute darkness, the sounds of the building seeming to come alive around me. A low scraping noise echoed from the center of the room, followed by a guttural sigh that wasn't human. Panic seized me. I fumbled for my flashlight, my fingers clumsy and trembling. The scraping grew louder, closer. It was no longer just the building, it was something in the building with me. I had found the source of the dread, and now, I had to escape it. The door I'd entered through seemed a lifetime away, and the darkness was no longer empty. The sheer chaos of it all was the first thing that hit me. I was on Elm Street, just trying to get to the corner store for some milk, and then, everything just imploded. It wasn't a gradual thing, it was like a switch flipped. People started screaming, not the usual city noise, but pure, unadulterated terror. I saw Mrs. Gable from next door, the sweet old lady who always gave me cookies, clawing at Mr. Henderson's face. His eyes were milky white, and his jaw, it was hanging at an impossible angle. He wasn't Mr. Henderson anymore. He was just this thing, gnawing at her arm like it was steak. My stomach churned, and for a second, I just froze, unable to process what I was seeing. Then the sheer, overwhelming wave of it hit me. More people were turning. Not like a disease spreading slowly, but like a wildfire. One minute someone was normal, the next they were stumbling, their skin gray and clammy, a guttural moan escaping their throat. Their movements were jerky, unnatural, and the hunger in their eyes was something I'd never witnessed before. It was primal, animalistic. I saw a man, a businessman in a sharp suit just moments before, his tie askew, tearing into another person on the sidewalk. The sounds, oh, the sounds. Ripping, tearing, wet, sickening sounds that would forever be etched into my memory. My carefully constructed world, my mundane Tuesday, had just dissolved into a living nightmare. My instinct, the primal part of me that had been dormant my whole life, finally kicked in. Run. Just run. I turned, abandoning the idea of milk, and sprinted back towards my apartment building, my heart hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. The normalcy I took for granted was gone, replaced by a suffocating blanket of fear and disbelief. Every shadow seemed to hide a threat, every distant moan sent shivers down my spine. The familiar streets now looked alien, menacing. The constant barrage of screams and the occasional sickening thud of bodies hitting concrete made my head spin. I felt utterly alone, even surrounded by the unfolding pandemonium. The sheer helplessness was a crushing weight. Inside my apartment, I slammed the door shut, locking it with trembling hands. The silence, punctuated by the distant chaos, was almost worse. Was I the only one left? Was this real? My mind raced, trying to make sense of the impossible. The silence pressed in, thick and suffocating. I stood frozen, listening. The screams outside had faded, replaced by a low, guttural moaning that seemed to emanate from everywhere at once. It was a sound that curdled my blood, a symphony of suffering that hinted at something deeply wrong, something unnatural. My heart hammered against my ribs like a trapped bird. I strained my ears, trying to discern any familiar sound, any human voice amidst the growing cacophony of dread. Nothing. Just the moans, growing closer, somehow managing to seep through the thick walls of my apartment. A sudden, violent rattling at the doorknob shattered the fragile quiet. I flinched, stumbling back, my breath catching in my throat. It wasn't the tentative jiggle of a curious neighbor. This was a forceful, desperate assault on the door, accompanied by a wet, scraping sound that made my skin crawl. I squeezed my eyes shut, praying it was a dream, that I'd wake up to the mundane reality of a normal day. But the relentless thudding against the wood felt too real, too solid. Through the peephole, a distorted image came into focus. A face, pale and gaunt, pressed against the glass. The eyes were vacant, milky white, and a dark, viscous substance oozed from a gaping wound in its cheek. The mouth was stretched in a rictus of agony, and the sounds that came from it were not words, but ragged, agonizing groans. It was a face I'd never seen before, yet in its horrifying distortion, I felt a chilling sense of recognition, as if it were a corrupted version of something I'd once known. The rattling intensified, the door groaning under the pressure. Panic clawed at me. I backed away, scanning the small apartment for any escape, any weapon. The kitchen knives seemed laughably inadequate. The windows offered no solace, the street below was a tableau of horror, figures shambling aimlessly, their movements jerky and unnatural. I saw a flash of red, something metallic glinting in the dim light, a discarded pipe, perhaps. But the distance was too great, the risk of opening the door for even a moment too high. The moaning outside had grown louder, joined by others, a chorus of despair and hunger. The door buckled slightly. A crack appeared, widening with each impact. I could see slivers of the hallway now, glimpses of something shambling past, too quick to identify clearly, but the sheer wrongness of their posture sent shivers down my spine. The one at my door slammed its forehead against the wood again, a sickening crack echoing through the apartment. It wasn't just a broken person, it was something else entirely, driven by an insatiable need. I pressed myself against the far wall, my muscles tensed, waiting for the inevitable breach. The air grew heavy, charged with an unseen threat, and the low, hungry sounds outside became a constant, gnawing presence. The pounding intensified, each impact vibrating through the floorboards and up my legs. I could hear splintering now, the doorframe groaning under the relentless assault. It wasn't just brute force, there was a rhythm to it, a methodical persistence that chilled me more than the sheer violence. I scanned the room for anything at all that could serve as a weapon. A heavy ceramic lamp. Too fragile. A kitchen chair. Too clumsy. My eyes landed on the old cast-iron skillet, a relic from my grandmother, sitting on the stove. It was solid, heavy, and imperfectly balanced, but it was something. With trembling hands, I retrieved it, the cold metal a stark contrast to the sweat on my palms. The sounds from the door shifted, a scraping now accompanying the thuds, as if whatever was out there was trying to find a way around the main point of entry. A sliver of light appeared as a crack widened near the lock. It wasn't going to hold much longer. My breathing grew shallow, ragged. There was no escape route, no other door, just the one that was about to give way. Suddenly, the scraping stopped. The pounding ceased. A heavy silence descended, broken only by my own frantic heartbeat. I waited, muscles coiled, ready to spring, but nothing happened. The silence stretched, thick and unnerving. Was it gone? Had it given up? The thought was tempting, a desperate flicker of hope, but the feeling of dread remained, a cold knot in my stomach. Then, a new sound. A soft, wet shuffling, coming from the window. My blood ran cold. I crept towards it, peering through the grimy glass. In the faint moonlight, I saw it. It was no longer at the door. It was clinging to the side of the building, its form indistinct but undeniably present. It was moving upwards, slowly, deliberately, towards my window. The glass shuddered as something brushed against it. I backed away, the skillet held out in front of me, a pathetic defense. The shuffling continued, a sickening scrape of something clawing at the brick. Then, a single, elongated shadow detached itself from the wall and pressed against the glass, obscuring my view of the outside world. The glass began to distort, bowing inward. As the glass distorted, bowing inward, I could feel a chilling tremor run through the floorboards. The shadowy form pressed harder, a grotesque caricature of hunger etched against the darkening sky. This wasn't just a random attack, it felt like a focused, relentless pursuit. I remembered the frantic scramble from the initial chaos, the desperate flight from what seemed like an unstoppable tide of them. My neighbor, old Mr. Henderson, had been caught unawares in his garden, his usual cheerful whistle replaced by a guttural moan that still echoed in my nightmares. He'd always been a man of routine, his garden a testament to his meticulous care, and seeing it overrun, seeing him succumb to the madness that was spreading like a contagion, was a stark reminder of how quickly everything could unravel. The silence that had descended after the initial wave of horror was a fragile thing, easily shattered by the persistent, unnatural noises from outside. Each scrape against the house, each distant, unidentifiable cry, sent a fresh wave of adrenaline through me. I thought about the community center, the rumors of it becoming a temporary haven. But was it still safe? Had they breached its defenses? The uncertainty was almost as debilitating as the direct threat. I recalled the desperate planning sessions, the hushed conversations about escape routes, about the essentials we might need. The emphasis on water purification tablets and the knowledge of edible plants felt incredibly distant now, almost like whispers from another life. The glass suddenly shattered, shards flying inward with a terrifying hiss. I instinctively flinched, shielding my face. The air was filled with the stench of decay and something else, something acrid and terrifyingly familiar. It was right there, in the doorway, a twisted silhouette against the dim light filtering in. It was the primal urge to survive that took over, pushing aside the panic. In these moments, a steady mind is your greatest weapon. Panic clouds judgment, leading to fatal mistakes. The ability to assess, to react, rather than to freeze, can mean the difference between life and a swift, brutal end. Remember, even in the direst circumstances, taking a deep breath, focusing on your immediate surroundings, and identifying your options is paramount. I backed further into the room, the skillet still held out, a testament to a desperate hope that it might offer some meager protection. The thought of a fallback plan, a secondary egress, had always been a point of contention during our brief, panicked planning. Some scoffed at the idea, believing escape was futile. Others, like myself, clung to it as a lifeline. It's a vital lesson in preparedness: always have a secondary plan, a contingency for when the primary fails. Don't rely on a single point of entry or exit. Think about what you would do if your initial escape route is blocked, if your safe haven is compromised. This isn't about expecting the worst, but about being resilient when it inevitably arrives. Thank you for venturing through these harrowing accounts with me. As we conclude, I implore you to reflect on the fragility of our everyday existence and the critical importance of proactive preparedness. The scenarios we've explored, however bleak, serve as potent reminders that vigilance and foresight can be our most valuable assets. Always consider how you would react if the familiar suddenly turned hostile. Practice basic survival skills, learn about your local environment, and maintain a level head. In times of extreme duress, your ability to remain calm and think clearly is your ultimate shield. If you found this narrative insightful or thought-provoking, please consider subscribing for more explorations into resilience and survival. Your comments are also invaluable. Share your thoughts, your own preparedness tips, or any questions you may have. Your engagement helps us all learn and grow.